Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's episode of the Sens Hour podcast. I am Shane alongside Derek. As always, hope you're having a great morning. How's it going, Derek?
It's going. Dropped my daughter off at school. We got another snowstorm happening out here in Muskoka, which seems like an everyday thing now. And yeah, we're getting to the end of February, so hopefully at some point the snow will start to melt and the temperature will go up a little bit, and then I'll be doing even better. How about you?
Pretty good. I mean, yesterday was pretty bad in Ottawa. I think we're expecting another snowstorm today and tomorrow. But I'm off today, so I don't really care if it snows. I'm not leaving the house. I have a lot of things to do after this. But thank you all for joining us this early in the morning. I think this is the earliest we've recorded in quite some time. But that's what happens when you work and you have other things going on. But, good. We have a game tonight, 7 o'clock start against Montreal, game 2. The first game, I think, went a lot better than we all expected. Let's be honest. I don't think any of us really expected to win that game after the debacle that was.
7-3.
Yeah. We'll jump right into it. We'll jump actually with the most heated conversation that's going on in Sens Twitter right now. That's the spear to Stützle's by Philip Deneau. He's not getting suspended by the sounds of it. He'll be in tonight's lineup. What's your expectation to the outcome of what's happening tonight for that?
You know what? Like, looking at the replay in slow motion, it looks bad. It probably looks worse than maybe it was. Not to defend Deneau at all, because I don't know. Again, I don't know if it was a dirty play. I don't know if it was intentional. He was turned around, and it doesn't look good when you look at it in slow motion. In real time, I don't think it was necessarily a spear. It was maybe more of an inadvertent high stick with a bit of a poking action going on. It's bad, no question, but I don't think it's bad enough to warrant a suspension, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're one of the few people that I've seen say that it hasn't warranted suspension. I don't know, man. The Department of Player Safety has been such a joke the last couple of years that I don't even know what's a suspension anymore. So I don't get my hopes up, but I'm just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, well, we'll fight about it in the second game. And I'm expecting there to be fisticuffs today versus Montreal. I think with how close the game was, they didn't want to risk taking unnecessary penalties, which is probably why we didn't see anything after that incident from Haley or Goodbranson or Watson. But I think early in game 2 tonight, we'll see some sort of retaliation from one of those 3 players.
Well, and you kind of hope so. That's what those guys are here for, right? I mean, those guys are literally here to protect the players like Stützle and, some of those younger pieces, Norris, some of the younger, maybe inexperienced, less strong pieces that Ottawa has, physically strong. So those players are there for a reason, and that's why. And I think Stützle took a ton of abuse. We talked about it before the Montreal series, but in that prior series, Stützle was all over the ice, taking cross checks, taking tons of abuse. So someone's got to step up and come to his defense. But once again, when you're in a close game like that and you're trying to squeeze out a couple points, you don't want to take a stupid penalty. You don't want to do anything that's going to cost your team 2 points or, potentially taking one away from Montreal. So I think it was the right decision not responding in last game. And I'm sure we'll see a response probably immediately in this game before the score is anything.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think we'll see kind of the fourth line out there for both teams just to get it over and done with within the first 5 minutes. Personally, I think that's kind of where we'll see something happen. But that was a great game. Some lucky bounces. Let's not kid ourselves. Batherson and Norris's goals were lucky, but Kachuk. I don't think I've seen Ottawa dominate an overtime like they did on Sunday. Kachuk was all over the ice. They had great chances. He finally gets a goal again, and there's really nothing bad to say about how they played on Sunday night.
No, I mean, Kachuk was all over the ice basically for the whole game, but yeah, more so in that overtime. That was a fun game. I'll be honest. I had a lot of fun watching that game. It was only a 3-2 game. I was going to say 2-1. It was a 3-2 game, but it was an exciting 3-2 game. And I thought Ottawa, yeah, they were dominant during stretches of the game. You've seen a lot of positive signs from some of the young players. Eric Brandstrom had arguably his best game in the NHL. I know, there was nothing to show for it in terms of points, but just the way that he played, he looked like Thomas Chabot offensively at times. He had that one really nice rush, and guess where it came from? The right side of the ice. I mean, you're starting to see maybe he is a little bit more comfortable, like he's saying, on that right side. And if that's the case, then it certainly looks promising for the future of, maybe Sanderson and Brandstrom pairing up. But for now, they want to, get his feet wet on his comfortable side of the ice, give him more minutes, gradually increase his minutes and his role. And then we'll see what Eric Brandstrom could do. But at least last game, I thought he looked like the defenseman that we acquired for Mark Stone. If he can become that player every game, if that's something he could do consistently, then I think the trade is good for Ottawa. You have a player in Mark Stone who didn't want to sign long-term, and you ended up landing a star defenseman out of it, who's 21 years old. It's probably not a bad trade. I mean, as good as Mark Stone is, I don't see that as a bad trade. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to look at Brandstrom. Like, he's 21. He'll be 22 entering next season. We generally don't see defensemen kind of take off until that age. And, Makar and Hughes coming in at 20 and kind of taking the league by storm, they're the exception. They're not necessarily the rule. We need to remember that Victor Hedman was considered a bust up until like year 4, year 5 for his career. And the same thing with McKinnon, where he showed glimpses, but you're kind of starting to doubt yourself of, could this kid live up to the number one expectations? I think we've put way too much pressure on Brandstrom's shoulders. Maybe he feels it because he was traded for Stone and he's like, okay, I need to live up to all this hype. I would love to see him kind of just play his game, which he did on Sunday night. I think if he plays his game consistently, he'll be a top 4 defenseman and we'll be solid in our top 4 when Sanderson comes up here, when Bernard Docker comes up, and when Lassie Thompson moves up.
Absolutely. And I think just, it's only a matter of time before Eric Brandstrom's on that number 1 power play unit as well. It was the same thing with Stützle, where it seemed, everyone was saying, come on, put him on the number 1 unit, put him on the number 1 unit. Eventually, they put him on the number 1 unit, and, he's going to stick around on that unit now. Now, the power play continues to struggle. I think it was 0 for 24, I believe, in their last 24 power plays. They have not scored. Now, it started to look better near the end of the game. The first power play was horrible. And then I think the second and third one from there looked really good. They were really moving the puck around. They still refused to switch Stützle and Batherson to give them one-time options, and they're still doing the slingshot drop pass to enter the zone. Is that driving you crazy at this point?
So the slingshot drop pass, yes, 100%. It's driving me crazy, but the Stützle Batherson isn't, because if you watch Stützle play, he does all his work from the half boards, from that left side half boards.
Yeah.
He feels the most comfortable there. So it's not necessarily the worst option. Personally, I would rather have a left shot on the right side, if possible, to set up that one-timer. But I think the way that puck movement's going, I don't think it's necessarily an option for them. I don't think they're focusing on that one-timer. I think they're trying to just get the puck moving. And you've seen the players move around, but that slingshot drop pass definitely does not work. But Batherson has still been our best entry guy. You give him the puck, him and Stützle have been our best entry guys on the first man unit the entire year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I agree with what you said with Stützle on the half wall on the left side. You can't take him off that spot. He's not a traditional one-timer finisher guy anyway. He's a playmaker primarily, but he also has a really good wrist shot, and he uses his wrist shot off that left half wall, not as a one-timer whatsoever. I've never seen him use it. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's like a Pettersson kind of thing. You need to put him in that spot and he'll one-time it in. That's not anything I've seen, at least to this point, even watching in Mannheim. That's not Tim Stützle. That's not what he is. Drake Batherson happens to be a right shot. If he was a left shot, it would almost work out perfectly. Maybe you could put Josh Norris in that spot, but he has kind of whiffed on a lot of one-timers, even though it was something he was good at in Belleville. For whatever reason, he's just not quite there yet. I noticed they're utilizing the bumper position for Dadonov. You've seen Brady Tkachuk feed him a couple of pucks. You've seen Stützle get it to him a couple times. And then, everything right now runs through Stützle on that left half wall because he's such an amazing passer. And we've seen that last game. Like, he fed it through like 3 sets of skates and sticks on the tape of Batherson, and he didn't know what to do with it. I think he was as surprised as anybody that it actually hit his tape. But he probably does need to tone it down as far as how hard he's passing the puck, because I don't think anyone can receive it.
Yeah, I don't think it's intentional either, though. I think it's literally he's using the power with speed, right? It comes, they're a package. I just don't think players are used to playing with that kind of player. It's an adjustment for everyone. You have a player that can pass the puck that hard, that quick. It's an adjustment for everyone. And I think Batherson, with them playing on the same line, have started to get used to it. But you also don't expect it sometimes. And when you don't expect it, it catches you off guard. And that kind of pass is hard to handle if you're getting it farther from you than if you were getting a one-timer. Personally, I would love to see Nick Paul on the first unit, setting up that one-timer on the right side, because I believe he's also a left-hand shot. So if you were to put him on the first unit, just for the one-timing purposes, and he does have a wicked wrister, personally, I think you'd have more success with Paul than you would Batherson right now.
And he could win you offensive zone faceoffs. He's their best faceoff man. So that would actually work out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and it's just – and, I mean – obviously, I like seeing the kids play because, obviously we've been talking about having the kids play. So, it's still a learning curve for everyone, right?
Yeah, and then you could still have a second unit of Batherson, Norris, and eventually Dzingel when he gets there, which doesn't look too bad at all either for a secondary unit.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Dzingel when he was in Ottawa. Like, I thought he was overrated. He got boosted with playing with Duchesne.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what he can bring to this team.
Yeah, same here. I'm excited, hopefully when he does arrive, and it still seems like forever away, but when he does arrive, maybe they'll consider at that point, if Stützle's got his feet under him enough, maybe they'll move him to center and see what a line of Stützle, Dzingel, and Batherson could bring you, because I think that would be just a world of fun.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the minority of individuals who think Stützle will not play as a full-time center in the NHL just because of our depth at center. Like, you're going to ask Stützle to beat out a guy like Shane Pinto, Josh Norris, Ridley Gregg, Colin White. So those are 4 guys that he has to beat out for that center spot. And our wing, specifically our left wing depth, isn't very good. It's Tkachuk, Formanton, and Abramov, really. You can add in Parker Kelly on the left side. But overall, our left wing depth isn't the greatest. So I think Stützle will stay at left wing unless we go out and get a solid top 6 left wing player.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm right with you, actually, Shane, on that. That's one of the things we agree on. I think there's a lot of pressure from people to move Stützle to the middle and see what he could do there. I see him as a left winger as well for the long term. I think they're definitely going to try him at center. I don't know if center is well suited for his game. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is Brady Tkachuk. I mean, Brady Tkachuk had an exceptional game. But here's a few things that Brady Tkachuk either leads the league in or is in second place. It's amazing. So, penalties drawn, number 1 in the league with 17 penalties drawn in 20 games. He's almost drawing a penalty per game. His differential this year is a +9 in that category. So he's drawing 9 more penalties than he's taking, which is great for him because that was an issue before. He would draw a lot of penalties, but he would also take a lot of dumb penalties. So it kind of balanced out. Now that's not the case. He's drawing a lot of penalties, taking a lot less. So number 1 in penalties drawn, even strength shots on goal. No one's close to Brady Tkachuk. He has 69 even strength shots on goal. You know who's second, Shane?
Uh,
Connor McDavid. And you know how many he has? 49. 20 shots less than Brady Tkachuk. I mean, this is crazy stuff. High danger chances, number 1, not close. Hits, he's number 2, 1 hit behind Radko Gudas, who's an absolute goon, with 83 hits this season. That is some impressive underlying numbers for Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, and I think if you ask him about it, he'll be pissed off because he's not scoring more. In his mind, he should have 20 goals by now. And I mean, he's not wrong either. Like,
yeah.
He's not wrong to think that too, because he does lead the league in high danger chances. He's had plenty of opportunity. It's the same with Connor Brown. It seems like Connor Brown is a breakaway a game and he just can't finish. Like, I feel so bad for him because last year he would have pot these. This year you can't buy a goal sometimes. And I think that's the thing, is that Ottawa is a lot better than our record shows for it if we could just finish more often on the chances that we do get. Because we do generate chances. We just can't find the back. Sometimes it feels like there's a brick wall behind the goalie and it's just constantly or a magnet or a force field behind the goalie. Just like, nope, the pucks don't come near here. And it's frustrating.
If I'm Coach DJ Smith, I'm getting Connor Brown, I'm pulling him aside and I'm saying, you're working on breakaways and shootouts this entire practice, like the whole time. Come up with something different, because all he's doing is a backhand, forehand shot, and it's hitting the goalie in the crest every single time. He even bailed out of a breakaway. I don't know if you noticed that. I think it was in the second period against the Canadiens, shorthanded, he would have had a breakaway, and then he just stopped skating and dumped it in. He's like, no, forget it. It's embarrassing at this point. And then lo and behold, in overtime, who comes on the ice at the perfect time? It's Connor Brown on a clear-cut breakaway. There was no one in his vicinity. It wasn't even close. And he did the same move and hit the blocker. It was like, really? This is just embarrassing at this point. It's Eric Condra stuff.
Basically, all we need is him missing open nets.
Yeah.
But, we've talked about Brandstrom, we've talked about Tkachuk, and Brown. You know who has had a really quiet, good year? Josh Norris.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure he's now tied with Kaprizov. Or just
he pulled
behind.
In front again. So he was. And now Kaprizov got 2 points last week.
I knew he got a goal. I wasn't sure if he got another point. But yeah, he's second in rookie scoring. Are we looking at the possibility of Norris winning the... Like, everyone was talking about Kaprizov and Stützle winning the Calder. Is it possible that Josh Norris sneaks in and wins it this year?
Man, that would be something. Winning the rookie, at whatever they call it in the American League, just the best rookie. I don't know if there's a title for that award, but
I don't think so. I think it's just Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, Rookie of the Year in the American League, and then following that up with the Calder Trophy in the NHL. That would be one hell of a start for the Senators. They've already reaped tons of rewards from the Erik Karlsson trade, but I mean, the two players that are really close in rookie scoring, Stützle and Norris, both come from one trade. It's that's quite something. They're both, hugely impactful players on this team moving forward, and it's nice to see that they're both right up there in rookie scoring. If Ottawa was scoring more, they would probably be up there even more. You know what I mean? Like, they're just thinking back to all the opportunities that Ottawa actually missed and how bad their offense has been this year. If they were on better teams offensively, I don't think it would be close. I think they would be way up there in terms of rookie scoring, but they still had nice seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of unfair to judge a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old versus a 23-year-old who was playing pro hockey over in the KHL the last couple of years.
24 now. Kaprizov turned 24, so like just recently.
Oh, that means they need to update the NHL app because on the NHL they have him as 23 still.
Yeah, I looked this up the other day. Let's see. Kaprizov, I'm pretty sure his birthday. No, sorry. He turns 24 in April. It's coming up.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, basically a 24 because I know Norris turns 23, I think, in May. So you have 22.
22.
So you have
22 in May.
Yeah. So you have a 23-year-old season, a 21-year-old season, and technically an 18-year-old season. technically Stützle's in his 18-year season.
Yeah.
Because the season started before his 19th birthday. So, there's 2 years or 3 years between Stützle and Norris, and then 5 years, 5 years between Stützle and Kaprizov. Like, Kaprizov is most likely going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a top 6 forward in Minnesota. He's having a solid year. But just because Norris and Stützle don't win, it doesn't mean they're not having solid rookie years. It's just unfortunate that Kaprizov, it's like the year Panarin won it. Like, he was 24 and he won the Calder. So it happens.
Yeah, that's the way the trophy's set up. You could be that old and still win a Calder trophy as the rookie of the year. But I think you're at a bit of a disadvantage. Like, you really have to show the NHL that you were far and away the best player. But I think Kaprizov is in a spot in Minnesota where he's able to do that. Like you said, he's coming right from the pros, from the KHL, and he's playing the most prominent role you can have. He is one hell of a player. I'll admit that. I've watched him play, and I definitely notice him. I don't know if it's the fact that he's wearing Connor McDavid's number, but he looks really good out there.
Yeah. I mean, he was also born in 97 because they're the same age. But it's kind of funny because I think Wayne Gretzky, the only trophy he did not win was the Calder, because he played in the WHA a year before joining the NHL, and they deemed him ineligible because he technically wasn't a rookie. Kind of crazy how you can play pro hockey in Europe for like 5 years, come over to the NHL, and still be considered a rookie now.
Yeah, maybe they got to look into that a little bit more, but it is what it is, and it's just a trophy. It really means nothing. Obviously speaking, Norris and Stützle are having fantastic seasons. They look really, really good and very promising for the future. So nothing to worry about there from a Sens fan perspective. One thing I wanted to bring up is some trade rumors.
I like trade rumors.
Always buzzing with trade rumors. But one of your favorite teams, the Calgary Flames, is potentially, and I don't know, where exactly this came from, and I still don't really believe that it's true, but potentially moving on from Matthew Tkachuk. Is that something you believe is going to happen? I know the Flames want to shake things up and they want to try something different with a bit of a different group. My thought initially was that maybe Johnny Hockey would be more so the guy being moved out, not Matthew Tkachuk. What's your take, Shane? Is Matthew Tkachuk coming to the Ottawa Senators?
So my understanding of the situation is Trevelyan is looking at the roster being like, okay, we've had the same core for the last couple of years, Giordano, Monahan, Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and they haven't had much to show for it. And now they're sputtering this year. Like, people expected myself to be top 3, top 2 in this division. They have the goaltending. Like, Markstrom has played well. They just haven't had consistent, forward play and defense play. So you're looking, as a GM, you look at, okay, what do I need to do? Who needs to be moved? Do I need to shake up the core? And I think that's where the Monahan, from my understanding, was brought up on the 31 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman, that Monahan and Gaudreau could be moved depending on the deal to kind of engage in a retool, bring in some prospects, whatever. Bennett's in that list. And then I think Haley retweeted something or tweeted it saying that, Matthew Tkachuk is kind of lost in the mix, but he might want out. And
so that got the ball rolling right there.
Yeah. And again, I don't know how much that is. I think she retweeted something that said it. I don't think it was actually her. But I think if you remember when he was an RFA, he was in Ottawa. Apparently, rumors was that he came to Ottawa with Brady Tkachuk because Brady Tkachuk was here for development camp, helping out and whatnot, working with the players. And my understanding is that Matthew was in Ottawa at some point before signing the deal with Calgary. And my understanding was Dorian was willing to put in an offer. Matthew Tkachuk was going to sign it, but he felt like the contract that he was going to sign, like he was going to accept in Ottawa, what they would have matched in Calgary.
So there was no point.
There was no point. So I don't really know. I don't know how true that is. It was just rumors that I heard at the time. So I'm not sure. Like, don't quote me on that being 100% like accurate. But I would not be surprised if within the next if Matthew Tkachuk goes to RFA next in 2 years, in I think the summer of 22. So yeah, next summer. I think Ottawa will put in an offer sheet on him.
All right, fair enough. It would have to be, it would have to be significant. Again, the more significant the offer sheet is, the more you have to give up. So, I mean, those things are kind of a risky play. But what's your best offer? Let's say you're Pierre Dorion. You hear that Matthew Tkachuk is potentially on the trade block, and you want to reunite the Tkachuk brothers to put them together on the same team. Give me your best realistic offer that you think Calgary might go for, or does one even exist from an Ottawa perspective?
I think you're looking at Chris Tierney, Logan Brown, probably a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and honestly, I would put in Formanton into that. If you're bringing in Matthew Tkachuk, it kind of forces Formanton under the lineup because there's no place to put him. If you're bringing in another left winger, I know he can play right, but realistically, okay, who's he going to move on the right side? So, Logan Brown, Chris Tierney, Alex Formanton, and a first round pick and a second round pick are probably what get that's my comfortable offer. Kind of something like the Carlson trade, honestly.
So like a package of basically quantity, like a quantity package that has the potential to work out for the Flames, especially with if the first round pick is this year, it's basically a lock to be
100%. I would give them this year's first round pick because I don't think anyone in that draft is going to be better than Matthew Tkachuk.
No, neither do I. But I think we undervalue the draft class a little bit, and we might think differently when it's time for the draft because this draft is likely going to be pushed back. So it's going to give everyone an opportunity to really see what these players can do. And there's a few players in the draft that I really like at this point already. But do I think they're going to be the next, Matthew Tkachuk who's capable of a point per game season? No. How special would it be to have the Tkachuk brothers on the same team? And how annoying would it be for the Leafs and Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, and it's also about how long are these players going to take to produce, right? If you're looking at a player in 21, if you don't pick until 22, cool. That's all fine and dandy, but Ottawa wants to be competitive, right? They want to start getting into competitive hockey. And if I'm Melnick, I'm telling Pierre Dorion, try getting Tkachuk. I'm okay with you trading for Tkachuk because what better way to win the fan base back than bringing in Matthew Tkachuk and then signing both him and Brady together on the same day whenever it's possible.
That would definitely make Brady lock up a long-term deal. Like if he's united with his brother on the same team, they're both signing long-term. There's no question about it. I'm interested to see what, if Calgary is actually trading Matthew Tkachuk. I'm interested to see what the offers would look like. Personally, I think the offer would be even richer than the one you posed. Like Logan Brown, I'm not sure how much value does Logan Brown have. Chris Tierney, same kind of thing. He's had a bit of an off year. He's a decent player that can kill penalties. He drives me crazy because he's so slow. He really doesn't, he doesn't move around the ice gracefully whatsoever. There's not a lot to love about the package you sent. Alex Formanton has the potential. And then, of course, the first round pick, which would be probably, number 1, 2, or 3, depending on how they're doing the lottery format too, that could play a big part because if they're reverting to the old format and Ottawa's still in dead last at the end of the season, that basically locks them up for first overall. I mean, it's pretty damn close to a lock. I think they would have like a 75% chance of winning first overall. So it would definitely raise that value of that pick, depending on, if Calgary sees a player that they really like within that pick. Maybe an Owen Power on defense would be something that they'd be interested in. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting pick. I think personally, it would cost you one of your best prospects I don't want to put Tim Stützle's name out there, but he is a left winger. Do you look at more of a, similar to the Mark Stone trade where you're doing more of a less quantity and more quality for Matthew Tkachuk? So maybe a Tim Stützle and a second would get it done. But then again,
I wouldn't give up Tim Stützle for Matthew Tkachuk.
Neither would I.
I would look at like if I'm looking at at prospects, like high end prospects, the two that come to mind really are Shane Pinto and Bernard Docker.
Yeah.
Or Ridley Gregg and Bernard Docker. I think Bernard Docker will probably be the guy that if they're looking for a defensive prospect, that could be the guy they look after. But I don't know. Personally, I would rather them go for Monahan than Tkachuk.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
And it's not
a shocker.
Okay, so it's not because I think Monahan or I think Tkachuk isn't beneficial to the team. But realistically, like honestly, how far are we for seeing Pinto in the NHL or Craig in the NHL? Yes, they could compete next season if they decide, like, if Pinto goes pro, he could compete, but he's most likely going to go to Belleville at least for a little bit. Craig could probably compete for a spot, but he'll probably go back to Brandon next season. So realistically, you're looking at our centers. We're most likely going to lose Tierney in the expansion draft. So we're looking at Colin White and Josh Norris as our two centers under contract next year. Monahan comes in. He has 2 years left as of next year. So realistically, you could cut bait after that. You could trade him, whatever. You don't have to commit to him long term if you feel like Pinto and Greg are ready to move up, whatever the case. But imagine Stützle, Monahan, and Batherson together.
Yeah, that would definitely be an improvement, a huge improvement from what they have now. I think, Monahan wouldn't cost you nearly as much, in my opinion. I don't think he's the same player that he was in his rookie season. He's another player that kind of struggles to get around the ice a little bit, but he has really good awareness, good hands. He was outstanding in the playoffs last year. I think he's an interesting player, especially if he's on a line with Batherson and Stützle. I think that's a nice fit. I wouldn't mind that the more I think about it, just because for the simple fact that it's probably not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Like you could probably realistically send Logan Brown in the first overall pick or first round pick this year, and that's close to enough to get you Monahan. No,
I don't even think you need to send a first. I don't know how much value Monahan really has in terms of prospect. Like, I'd rather send, Abramov and Brown in a second round pick for Monahan because there's a chance that, a Beniers is better than Monahan. Right?
That's very true. Yeah.
So if you're looking at a short and a long-term game, Logan Brown has probably played his last season in Ottawa. I don't see him being in Ottawa start in camp next year. Abramov has done really well. I like Abramov, but I don't see him getting a really good opportunity in Ottawa, especially on the right side. And I don't know how comfortable he is on the left side. So you trade him to Calgary. You give Calgary two, tier 2 or low tier 1 prospects. Give him a second round pick for Monahan. They don't have to retain any salary. They're not gaining a lot of salary. You can probably get Logan Brown under $1 million for 2 years and as an RFA, and the same with Abramov. So you're saving quite a bit in cap. Getting a second round pick, I don't see why they would say no.
Yeah, that's a nice proposal. I mean, from an Ottawa perspective, I'd be all over it. Even though Monahan's not a player that I love, but like you said, he's signed on for the next couple of seasons. It's definitely a huge improvement over what they have now. And if it works out, then you can re-sign him. If it doesn't work out, you could easily flip him and he'd still have lots of value. So you could easily return your assets. So it's really not a bad move if you're Pierre Dorion and you're trying to escalate that process and speed the rebuild up a little bit more and become a competitive team as early as next season.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. Once we're back, we still have more trade rumors to go because there's also another team out in the Central now, looking at maybe offloading some contracts. So we're going to take a quick break. When we're back, we'll talk that. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Like, I like Pinto, and I remember everyone like, and this is the thing that I think Sens fans need to start realizing. We need to stop looking at the draft. We really need to stop looking at a player being like, he was drafted way too early. You know who you can make an argument who was drafted way too late? Mark Stone. 6th round pick, and now he's making $9.5 million. Pajot, drafted I think in the 5th round and making $5 million. Hoffman. Welcome to the Sens Hour podcast, your number one source for Sens content, part of the Hockey Podcast Network, hosted by Shane from Ottawa and
Derek from Muskoka, almost near Leaf Country out here. But I think Clevin was right up there because they traded up to get him with the Leafs. And again, they passed up some talented players for a guy like Clevin. But now Clevin's all of a sudden looking like a talented player himself. Like that goal that he scored in the 3rd game in UND was outrageous. It was just not something you're expecting from the Twitter scouts, especially.
Sens Hour Podcast, your number one stop for all your Senators content. New episodes coming at you every Monday and Thursday, part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Take care.
And we are back. Thank you all for sticking with us through that promo. Give me a little credit. That was the first time ever creating something like that, so it's a little rough. My bad. But just want to let you know we do have a jersey contest going on through the Hockey Podcast Network. Have your chance to win a new Ottawa Senators jersey. Head on over to our Twitter page. It is our pinned tweet. Follow us. Follow the Hockey Pod Net. Retweet the original post, and the show with the most retweets will announce a winner. So obviously tell your friends to retweet it, even if they're not Sens fans, just retweet it. Get us to the most. I think we came in like 3rd or 4th last time we did this. So you're all out there. Let's do it. Also remember, DraftKings, promo code THPN for new users. And we're back into the trade talks as always because we love trade rumors. The Nashville Predators are rumored to be listening on offers for anyone that is not named Roman Josi, Pekka Rinne, or Ryan Ellis. So I put out a tweet a couple days ago when I heard that, saying the 3 players, in my opinion, that come to mind for an Ottawa trade are Philip Forsberg, Ryan Johansson, and Matt Duchene. I know a lot of people are iffy on both of Johansson and Duchene. Forsberg would be a great addition. So which player out of Nashville would you like in Ottawa by the end of the season or before the start of next season if they decided to go into a full retool?
Yeah, so definitely not Matt Duchene. We've seen that before. Not Ryan Johansson. Like, the guy just really doesn't shoot the puck. And I think Ottawa needs a finisher. Obviously speaking, Philip Forsberg is the best player on that list. The only risk thing there is I don't know how serious Nashville is about actually wanting to trade their best player because, like, to me, aside from Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg's their best player. I'm not sure why they would want to protect Pekka Rinne at this stage in his career over a guy like Philip Forsberg, who's been, outstanding for that team every year. He's one of the more skilled players in the league. I mean, it would cost you an awful lot to trade for Forsberg. I don't see there being any fit, to be honest, in Ottawa, but could they acquire someone like Ryan Johansson for a lot cheaper? Yeah, they could. Would he be an improvement? Yeah, he definitely would right now. Not my favorite player in the league, that's for sure. He has a bit of a perimeter mentality, a bit of a softer mentality from what I remember from watching him play. I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of Nashville games. So I haven't seen him play for quite some time. But from what I remember, he was not a player that I liked very much. He is a good playmaker. He can create offense. No question, he has a lot of skill. He was traded for Seth Jones. I mean, he obviously has a lot of skill. And would he be a number one center on the Senators? Yeah, he would right now. But long-term picture, I don't see him as a real fit.
Yeah, and I think he's here for another like 4 years. Definitely not something that Ottawa should be looking at unless they're looking at a guy that they don't care about keeping the cap hit. Like they might not care about how much they're paying a guy for the next 4 years because they need the cap hit.
Yeah, they will need it for at least for the next couple of seasons, but you're taking a bit of a risk on when you take a guy who's got 4 years left, who's possibly on a decline. Like this guy hasn't scored more than 15 goals in, I want to say like the last 5 seasons. Like it's been a long time since he's been over 15 goals.
Yeah, so we have 4 more years. He's 28, so we have him until he's 32, which isn't necessarily the worst thing.
No.
Like it could definitely be a lot worse. It's not like a Matt Duchene situation. But yeah, no, you're right. I think that he's never hit. He hit 33 and 26 back-to-back years with Columbus in 13-14 and 14-15. And then hasn't hit
I think 15 was his highest after that, right?
Yeah, with Nashville at 17-18. But, he's had he had 60 points in 15-16. He had 61 in 16-17. He had a 36-point season last year, but everyone in Nashville struggled. He had 5 points in 4 playoff games. He's not a finisher. He's definitely a playmaker. He had 50 assists in the 18-19 season for 64 points. So if you're looking for a finisher, he's not necessarily the guy you want, but if you're looking for a playmaker, he's a lot like the Joe Thornton type where he can shoot, but he's going to set you up more often than not. And if you look at who he might be playing with, I don't see it being much of a fit because Stützle's a finisher, or Stützle's a setup guy. Batherson is more of a finisher to a certain extent. So I don't really know where he would fit, but I think he would be he'd be an upgrade, that's for sure.
Yeah, I could see him getting Dadonov going, but again, how long is Dadonov going to be here? When you're looking at long-term picture and when they actually want to compete, I think maybe the best solution is just to be patient because we have seen glimpses with this team as is of looking like a really good team. They're a middle of the pack possession team. So it really is just a matter of some of your young players coming up and maturing. And we can't forget that this team still has a slew of really, really top tier prospects coming through their system that have not arrived at the NHL yet. And we're just scratching the surface of guys like Norris and Stützle, and Batherson. These are 3 players that are basically, all 3 of them are top 6 players on this team. The whole core of the defense is going to change over. I mean, you've got your additions, Sanderson, Brandstrom, who hasn't really arrived yet, JBD, the whole team is still going to change over. So before they make sort of a reactionary move based on how poorly they've played this season, I think there's a lot of things that have to play out first. And the best method might be just staying patient with the group that you have, because I really do feel like the Senators could definitely build something special here. You're seeing a Tim Stützle. He's playing his 18th year, like you said. This is his 18th season. Yeah, he just turned 19. He's the youngest player in the NHL, and he is going to be a wizard with the puck. Just give him that strength, give him that time to get adjusted to the game. We're already seeing it. He's going to take over. He's going to be right up in the conversation, right up with the top players in the league for the conversation year after year. Give him 3 years and he'll be there.
Yeah, that's for sure. I just think we're not going to see a trade this season that of this magnitude. Obviously, I think our offseason, our plans for next season really will be determined by what happens between the expansion draft and the draft. If Ottawa loses Tierney, who do they use to replace him? Do they try to go small and sign, bottom six players, or do they go out and grab a Johansson because they rather him, a 29-year-old, over getting a third line or fourth line guy? It just depends on the situation, but I don't think it's out of the question for Ottawa to go out and grab a center outside of maybe signing one to a long-term deal. I don't think they'll be comfortable signing, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to a long-term deal. I think they'll rather go out and grab a center than sign somebody.
But again, it's going to be a weird offseason. We've seen what Taylor Hall did. Would Ryan Nugent-Hopkins be interested in doing something similar with Ottawa if it works out for Taylor Hall? Maybe, maybe he signs a 1 or 2 year deal, kind of let me show you what I could do for, $6 million or $7 million. You could overpay him next year if you want. You could offer him $8 million, come in, be a number one center, and showcase yourself for the rest of the league for the following season, and then sign your long-term deal that takes you well into your 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that Nugent-Hopkins is going to stay in Edmonton because of Ottawa, because I think James Neal is heading to Ottawa in the offseason.
Oh, gosh.
I honestly would not be surprised.
No. He was on waivers the other day.
I would not be surprised if Ottawa looks at trading for him, getting a prospect or a pick or some collateral to take that contract, and then either, saying, screw it, we'll keep you on as, our 13th forward, whatever. They'll bury you in the AHL. Kind of like the Islanders have done with Andrew Ladd. They've buried him in the AHL in Bridgeport. Could Ottawa do the same with James Neal? Either bury him in Belleville or just buy him out? I don't know.
Could they? Yeah, but they would reluctantly play him. No, I mean, they would willingly play him in their lineup like they do with all these veterans that are basically useless now. I think it would be that's something that would be frustrating.
Well, okay, looking at since we've looked at the roster, for next year, and I think the only reason why they trade for a guy like James Neal or Louis Eriksson is if Pinto doesn't go pro, if he goes back to UND, because realistically we need the money, right?
Yeah, we have to take on salary somewhere.
And if you look at, if Brown's not back, okay, and even if Brown, even if he is, there's no guarantee Brown gets a roster spot. Is James Neal really gonna, stop Formanton from playing? Probably not. If Formanton doesn't make the lineup, I guarantee you it's not because of James Neal. It'll be because they have Stützle on the left wing and Paul on the left wing, and Paul is playing fantastic, and Formanton couldn't beat out Paul, and they don't want Formanton playing, fourth line minutes right now. It won't be because of James Neal. No one's going to lose a roster spot because of James Neal unless they lose it themselves, and James Neal is just there because of money.
I feel like the Senators would not – we'll see. I feel like they wouldn't trade for James Neal. I feel like he's a known locker room cancer. He definitely has a bit of a history of being a character in the room. And that's something that, again, people talked about with the Tony DeAngelo thing, and everyone was all over that. And, some people were saying, oh, yeah, we should just give him another chance and trade for him. And I really feel like, the whole premise of this rebuild was built around character. So Ottawa's not going to get a guy that's going to risk the development of the young players and the character of the young players in their locker room. I feel like James Neal has a bit of that reputation, to be honest. We'll see, though. You're right. They have to add money somewhere. Will it be a veteran player that's going to play at the bottom next season once again, or will it be a player that they could play at the top of their lineup? Personally, that would be perfect. I mean, that's a perfect fit for the Senators. And if you want to overpay a player, I have no problem with it. You could overpay them next season. You have to. So overpay Dougie Hamilton, who could play with Thomas Chabot.
Oh my God. The Sens Communications just tweeted out that Michael Haley has been recalled from the taxi squad, and Ismov has been reassigned to the taxi squad.
A lot of back and forth.
Braden Coburn was reassigned to the taxi squad, and Logan Shaw was reassigned to Belleville, which isn't surprising. It was just Um,
So Haley's coming in again.
yeah, it's just funny because 22 hours ago, forward Artem Anisimov has been recalled from the taxi squad, and corresponding move forward Michael Haley has been reassigned to the team's taxi squad. God damn it, guys.
They just switched it up. Someone made a wrong phone call there.
I don't know. I think they're expecting something to go on that they're like, oh, we'll make sure we're ready just in case, because they don't want Kachuk fighting. They probably don't want Paul fighting. So,
but bring in Michael Haley, let him get beat up a little bit, and see what he can do. He's not a big guy; like he's not huge for a fighter.
No, but he's a
fighter.
Yeah, he can definitely throw them with the best of them.
He's a scrappy guy, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I have no problem with it because is Anisimov really a better option? I don't know. Until Ryan Dzingel comes to kind of round out the roster, they don't really have a better option. So it kind of makes sense. You're not pulling Formanton away from Belleville, even though they're not playing games, to play like 8 minutes a night. What's the point, right?
Yeah, I think Dzingel is gonna I think we need to stop numbering lines. I've said it before. DJ Smith is just going to play the best players that are playing great that game, and that's just how it's going to be. But I think you know who wasn't talked about a lot is forgetting Braden Coburn in last game. He had a really solid game on Sunday, and it went by relatively quietly.
Oh, you felt he was solid? See, I did not think he was solid on Sunday. I noticed him a few times in the first period, and I thought, man, the offense just dies every time this guy's on the ice. Like he was hemmed in his zone. He didn't make a glaringly big mistake, but at the same time, he didn't break the puck out whatsoever. Like when you watch a player like Zub, for example, he's able to wisely get the puck to Mike Riley, and he's always, moving the puck forward. He's moving it out of his zone. When you watch a guy like Braden Coburn, he hesitates with the puck. He's extremely slow. He takes forever to make a play, and then he decides to rim it around the boards, and it doesn't get out of the zone. Like that's the little stuff that drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah, Coburn's offensive skill is lackluster at best, but I think that's what happens when you play him with Eric Goodbranson.
Yeah, that's a recipe for a disaster. Thankfully, Shabbat is back tonight.
Yeah, but I think overall, he had a good game. You bring him in and you expect some good defensive play from him. He helped box out a couple players in front of the net. He had some very good stick work that, he was able to get the stick in the lanes. Obviously, it wasn't, oh my God, what has this guy been doing in the last couple of games that he's played? Why can't he play like this every game? But it was definitely something where, everyone was worried about Coburn being in the lineup before the game. He didn't do anything. Yeah. He didn't do anything to cost us a goal, right? Like he wasn't out of position. He didn't get turnstiled by Perry. He didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't do anything great. So he was just a solid. He had a solid game. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. He wasn't glaringly bad. Mike Riley had a really bad game. I'll be honest.
He is like a roller coaster of emotions because he'll do a really bad turnover and then block the shot because of the turnover.
Yeah, so sometimes his decision making is questionable, and then sometimes you're like, whoa, he's like the best D on the ice. So it's hot and cold with him. It's like the goaltending situation this year. Who knows what we're going to get? We're going to get good Matt Murray or really bad Matt Murray. We're going to get good Hogberg or really bad Hogberg.
Hey, we got really good Murray on Sunday, and hopefully we'll get really good Murray tonight.
Yeah, he also let in the first shot of the game, and I was like, oh, here we go. We're getting bad Murray tonight. I know what we're going to get, and then he completely turned it around. At least, there is a stretch of games here, aside from taking over for Hogberg in the Leafs 7-3 blowout. For a large stretch of games, aside from that one where he wasn't expecting to play, he's looked rock solid. So hopefully, that is a real turnaround and not something that's just kind of a facade that looks like a turnaround, but then, he's going to hop back into the net tonight and have a real stinker of a game. We need consistency from the goaltending to even have a chance to win.
Yeah, and I mean, let's give Suzuki credit on that goal. It was a beautiful place shot. most goaltenders probably would have had troubles with it. Like Suzuki has a good shot, and he placed that really well. If I remember correctly, he went bar in.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, yeah, it was the first shot, but definitely not the first shot you want to face.
No, it was a decently placed shot for sure. He was further back, like he wasn't in the prime slot. He was just outside of the circle, if I remember correctly. And I thought it was a stoppable puck if Murray wasn't so deep in his crease. Like he played really deep, but it was also the first shot of the game. So, like you said, you would probably want to feel the puck a little bit more, playing an easier shot to stop. And in that case, it didn't happen. But one thing's for sure, the Montreal Canadiens are not the same Montreal Canadiens that we were so afraid of playing at the start of the season. This team looks slower. They look way more dysfunctional. They're not having fun out there.
I honestly think Claude Julien needs to, he's the issue in my opinion.
Something's going on there because I noticed during the broadcast, they're highlighting Suzuki for all these little things, the broadcast is trying to boost the guy's confidence. And I'm like, he's not really doing much out there aside from the one goal that he scored, which was nice. I didn't notice, they're really trying to go out of their way to make it look like he's doing something special and refinding his game. And to me, it was just pulling at straws. Same thing with Kotkaniemi. I mean, another player that, are we ever thankful that we got Brady Tkachuk over? Because, I mean, he's not a bad player, don't get me wrong, but he's definitely not worthy of a third overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate Claude Julien. I hated him in Boston. I thought it was a stupid hire by Montreal. I really think that, Boston got the best coach out of Bruce Cassidy. If I'm Bergevin, I'm looking at getting rid of Julien because, especially if you go from being the top team in the league. I think they're sitting at third or fourth now, with Edmonton sitting second. I know Calgary shut out Toronto. I haven't actually taken a look at the standings this morning. Yeah, so they're sitting fourth. They're 2 points behind Calgary. If they lose tonight, and I mean they have 2 games in hand over Calgary, so it's not the end of the world. But if they were to lose tonight against Ottawa, and then Calgary were to win tomorrow against Toronto, they're tied, and Calgary plays Ottawa next. So, I don't know. I feel like if I'm Montreal, today is kind of a must-win. And Ottawa's kind of creeping up on teams.
Yeah, they'll have to string together, a large number of wins, more than 2 in a row, that's for sure.
No, but we're creeping up on teams in the bottom. We're a point behind Buffalo. I mean, they've played fewer games. They played 2 fewer games, so they have 5 fewer games because we're at 20.
That's significant. Yeah.
Yeah, New Jersey's only played 13, but we're 3 points behind them. The Rangers have only played 16, but we're 4 points behind them. Obviously, a lot of these American teams, especially in the Mass Mutual East, because of COVID, have struggled. But honestly, overall, I think if Ottawa can string, we're 2 points behind Detroit. So if we can string some games, some wins together here, we can move up the standings.
And, oddly enough, we would never say this, but oddly enough, I'm looking forward to facing Carey Price because he has really struggled this season. There's actually a bit of a goaltending controversy in Montreal right now with how well Allen's played versus, Carey Price. So I'm interested to see if Ottawa's just going to put everything on net tonight.
Yeah. The surprise of the season, before we end off, the surprise of the season is definitely Chicago. They're sitting 4th in the Discovery Central with 22 points. They've played the second most games. They're tied with Columbus in games, and they have a game in hand over Detroit. But I don't think people even thought they'd be even sniffing the playoffs, and now they're sitting 4th with games in, pretty good.
I agree with you, but I'm going to one-up you on that and say the surprise of the season is the Florida Panthers. I mean, their win percentage is the best in the entire hockey league. Who was seeing that coming? They lost Dadonov.
Okay, but realistically, you still have Huberdeau, you still have Barkov, you have Bobrovsky, so you're hoping for a Bobrovsky turnaround.
He's been not even playing because Driedger has been their number one.
So Driedger has somehow taken the net from Bobrovsky, but you look at their roster, and you look at it and you're like, okay, you should be a competitive team.
I think Coach Q is really starting to wash off on them. They're playing a much better structured system. I've been watching a lot of Panthers games, and they are actually a really good team. It's not just, fluky numbers. They're beating good teams like Tampa, and they're actually beating them, in every department. And good for them. It's good to finally see the Florida Panthers maybe find the right mix of players. And there's a few underrated players. Carter Verhaeghe has been a player that, kind of came out of nowhere, and it's like, who is this guy? And he's a scoring machine.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but we're gonna have more to talk about. Obviously, we didn't really talk much about the Toronto series because that was just a dud, and may as well just forget about it. We got this. We talked about the 5-1 collapse. The last 2 games were garbage. We lost both of them. We got blown out in one of them.
Yeah.
So we don't even need to talk about that. Is there anything else you want to mention before we head off?
You know what? I posed a Twitter question, and it got a lot of responses. So I just want to get your quick take on this before we end the show.
Yeah, what's up?
Tim Stützle has now played a number of games in the NHL. I don't know if you've seen the tweet that I sent out. Who do you think, in your mind, is the best NHL comparable now that you've seen a large sample from Tim Stützle?
Patrick Kane.
So you're sticking with the Patrick Kane. Okay, so a lot of people had Kane. A lot of people had Barzal. Some people said a blend of both of them.
If you watch the first 4 or 5 years of Kane, and you watch the way Tim Stützle carries the puck and moves the puck, even their shots are very similar. I think he could be a better version of Kane if he sticks on the wing.
Yeah, he's got the size on his side there. This guy's going to be over 200 pounds. He's 6'1". He's not a small player.
No, not at all. So I would expect that. I like the Kane comparable. I've seen a lot of it so far. Watching both teams, like Chicago and Ottawa this year, I like the Kane comparable.
All right, fair enough. I never answered my own tweet, but quite truthfully, I don't know. I don't see an NHL comparable in Tim Stützle. I think he's his own player, and I get the Patrick Kane thing. And I said before he came to Ottawa, that would be for me watching him in Mannheim. That was my most comparable player as well. With the hands, the agility, the way he works the power play, very similarly, his playmaking abilities, his shooting abilities. But to me, watching Stützle in the NHL, I really don't know. I see a little bit of Pavel Bure if we're going way back. He's got more power forward mentality, maybe a Kovalchuk, maybe a Marian Hossa. I see more power forward there than a Patrick Kane. So that's what kind of shifted my thinking. But we'll end it off right there because it's a bit of a debate, and we could go on and on with that debate. And there's no right answer to it. It's just a matter of opinion.
Yeah, but like you said, we're going to end the show here. Thank you all for tuning in on this Tuesday morning. It's early for everyone. So thank you all who's tuned in. Remember to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us on Twitter, Instagram for updates, and to stay up to date on all the Sens Hour stuff. We have some big news dropping hopefully within the next week or so. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. We'll be back live here again on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. A.m. Eastern time, so you won't want to miss it. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Follow myself, Shannon_Ryan97, Derek at DLee075. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.